With some reflection, there's a big part of him that's wondering if there's a way to sort of bring the UK back into the fold of his life. If she's scheduled to appear somewhere and she has to pull out, it will obviously evoke a little bit more panic than it would have before. So I think it makes sense as a strategy for at least the next little while. You know, this is about accountability and no one's above the law, which is also concerning if they maintain that level of profile on the case.
Hello and welcome to Royal Exclusive. I'm Matt Wilkinson. In the studio today is news.com.au royal reporter Bronte Coy and GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Welcome to you both.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. I have to talk about Prince Harry. There is often a lot of nonsense written about Harry and Meghan online, and it's very difficult to sift through, find out what's true, verify what's true, and really get to the bottom of what's happening over there in California. But I was really drawn by the front page of the Hello magazine this week, or this month, this week, and they've reported, they've quoted a friend of Harry's, and this is something that I do believe the story to be accurate. They've quoted a friend of Harry's saying, "The goal for Prince Harry is simple. He wants to ensure the safety of himself and his family while in the UK so his children can know his home country and so he can help support his passengers and their important work." They're indicating that he wants to come back here with his children and wants his two children to have more of a life in the UK. Why do you think we are hearing this now? What's key about the timing, possibly, or why this message is emblazoned on the front of Hello magazine?
A few things struck me about this. Firstly, it's been 5 years since they left, but also when they left with such a passionate blaze of glory. They were so disheartened and bruised by the situation that they'd had back here. And I think that with all these things, once the dust settles and the emotion gets taken out of it a little bit, the reality is that he loves his home country. He talked about it in his memoir, and I think after a few years, he probably just very much misses it. And then you add the addition of a second child. You know, he's probably looking at those children and thinking about the fact that they haven't spent time getting to know their roots, which includes the Spencer family as well, as they're based here in the UK. So, it's both sides of it. But I think that as all these situations have changed, and also possibly it could have something to do with the US political climate as well, a lot of things have changed in the last 5 years. And I think it's entirely possible that with some reflection, there's a big part of him that's wondering if there's a way to sort of bring the UK back into the fold of his life.
Who do you think this message is sent to? You know, who do you think they're saying this to? Is it to us, the media? Is it to the British public? Is it to the authorities or the courts in the UK or the royal family themselves?
Well, I think it's a combination probably of the British public and King Charles, his father. The King has only met Princess Lilibet once during the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And there are reports, which haven't been confirmed or verified, that suggest that Prince Harry is essentially trying to lobby his father to intervene in his court case he's got going against the Home Office. But of course, the King is not going to do that because he cannot be seen to be involved in any court cases in the United Kingdom. So in April this year, we're expecting Prince Harry's appeal to be heard. The Home Office downgraded his security in 2020 when he stood back as a member of the royal family, and he lost that case, but he's appealing. And what he told ITV last year was that he will not bring Meghan or his two children to the UK because he feels he can't keep them safe without the level he used to have, police protection he used to have.
That's the other interesting part of it. He really drew the line in the sand with that. So if the case doesn't go the way he wants it to, he's made it clear. He said, I won't bring them back here. So, in terms of that article, where does he go from there if it doesn't go how he wants?
There are also, I think there is a date in the diary soon for, it's not an appeal, it's kind of an appeal. It's a new hearing regarding this move to make his visa application public, because I think that the organisation that was trying to make the visa application public, or his US visa application public, it failed, basically. It failed to be heard in court, or it failed to be released. But there is an appeal hearing coming up. I use the word appeal. It's not exactly
It's a legal challenge.
A legal challenge,
yes.
Isn't it? Is that worrying for Harry? We've got Donald Trump. Is this what he's saying here, that he wants to find a way out?
I think that the big change since that case was terminated in September is, of course, the new US president, who has made no secret of his position on it. And also, he's been asked about it so many times in the last couple of years that I genuinely believe that Donald Trump has many, many other much more important things to be dealing with, but he has been asked about it a lot. It's something that's probably not going to go away, especially as it continues to get this attention. And I think that in itself will be concerning because the Heritage Foundation, who is the one pushing to have the application made public, has also lobbied and urged Donald Trump to intervene and said, you know, this is about accountability and no one's above the law, which is also concerning if they maintain that level of profile on the case.
There are just things with the courts in the UK and Great Britain regarding this, you know, his visa application and wanting the security. They don't seem to be going away. There doesn't seem to be an end point. There always seems to be more appeals, more hearings, and we'll be talking about this apparently for months and months to come. Now, Cameron, we were both in Poland this week. We went to the 80th anniversary commemorations of the Holocaust, of the liberation of Auschwitz camp.
Yeah.
We were there at the camp with the King and many other world leaders. It was a real tough day for us attending it and watching all the commemorations and hearing those stories from survivors of the Holocaust. But it felt, for me, like that it was an important day for King Charles to attend. What were your thoughts from covering it?
Yeah, I think it was. It was really poignant. And the week before at a Buckingham Palace reception, the King said he felt it was incredibly important for him to be there. He's the first British head of state ever to visit Auschwitz or Auschwitz-Birkenau. And I think he was visibly emotional, particularly at the death wall where he laid a wreath where the SS shot dead thousands of prisoners. And he took a moment to look at the wall. He then turned around to walk away, but then he turned back. And it was when he turned back that he looked quite upset. And he was, of course, in Krakow earlier in the day at the Jewish Community Centre, a place which he kind of inspired its creation, because he visited Krakow in 2002, where the Jewish population was still wiped out from the Nazi regime in the 40s, and then came back in 2008 to open it, and now again on the 80th anniversary of liberation.
Because he was quite shocked, wasn't he? We often say, when we report on the rules, they're visibly moved. But he did appear visibly moved. I remember he did, when he almost like wiped a tear away when he was hearing these horrific stories from survivors. But also he was visibly moved by, I think there were some children's shoes. I think they were in the cabinets, and he was shown the things that had been taken from the Jewish people that had been, you know, taken into this camp and exterminated. The world leaders that did attend, that they weren't invited to make speeches. It was all about the Holocaust survivors and their stories, and rightly so. But he did manage to, you mentioned about the JCC event earlier, he did manage to make a speech there, and he warned of the depths humanity can sink when evil is allowed to flourish and the dangerous re-emergence of anti-Semitism. These are powerful messages from our King.
I was about to say, it was such a powerful speech. I was so moved listening to it all, and you could tell that it was something that he felt was very important to share. So I'm glad that he did find an opportunity to share it on that day. As you say, as world leaders weren't speaking at Auschwitz that evening.
Mm. While we were in Poland, I don't know if you remember, we got a message from Kensington Palace earlier in that morning saying that actually the Princess of Wales would be joining Prince William at a ceremony in London, back in Guildhall. And although Auschwitz was a tough visit, it was a tough thing to go to and hear all the stories, this was a little bit more lighter. It was a little bit more positive, wasn't it? I think we had a lot of hugs from the Princess of Wales with old friends. I think she'd met some of them before.
Yeah, she had. It was. Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, it kind of fit what we knew about Catherine's year, which is that she's going to sort of pick the engagements she takes part in. And this did come through quite last minute. And then having seen that footage of her having this reunion with the two people that she'd photographed a few years earlier, you could tell that was something that was extremely important to her. And then that made a lot of sense as to why she wanted to be there on the day. And it was such an intimate reception, and seeing her share smiles and hugs with them, and they seemed so pleased to see her again. And I think one of them spoke of how she'd even written a Christmas card to them. So obviously they're staying in touch as well. So yeah, it was a lovely thing to see her taking part in that.
Yeah, and the princess said it was like greeting an old friend, photographing them for the 75th anniversary of the end of Auschwitz being liberated. And it was full circle, really, I think, for the princess meeting them again.
It's interesting that it was announced quite late. I mean, do you think this is because maybe the princess wanted to, or had left for a late decision maybe, or that they just wanted to you know, keep it quiet, keep it on the down low? Are we going to expect this more from the Princess of Wales, that she'll make almost unannounced visits?
Well, we knew that the Prince of Wales was going to be marking Holocaust Memorial Day in some capacity. We didn't know exactly how. But it's just consistently, I think, over the last year with Kensington Palace, if the Princess of Wales does do a public engagement, it does tend to be very last minute that we find out about it, because, of course, we saw the huge speculation and the barrage of kind of social media speculation when the princess was in hospital and then recovering and undergoing chemotherapy. And Kensington Palace clearly will be mindful of that and won't want to repeat the sensationalist kind of speculation and panic that arose back in March. And if they announce something a week in advance and then she had to pull out last minute because she wasn't feeling very well, it could create negative headlines for them.
She looked good, though, Bronte. She looked happy and relaxed.
She did. Relaxed is the right word, I think. She just seemed really pleased to be able to take part in it. It seemed like something she looked very emotional, but in a way that was very moving. She, not in the same way as King Charles at Auschwitz. Emotional in that she just seemed really pleased to be there speaking with these people that she knew. And yeah, I think exactly as you said, I think it's one of those situations where it will be probably the policy moving forward is to keep it last minute, because even if she had a cold or something, if she's scheduled to appear somewhere and she has to pull out, it will obviously evoke a little bit more panic than it would have before. So I think it makes sense as a strategy for at least the next little while.
That's a really good point. One thing that did strike me, and I don't know if we're breaching secrets here, but one thing that worried me about this whole event is that it was embargoed till 6 p.m. because these were Holocaust survivors that were at this event, and they needed the news to break after the Holocaust survivors had actually left the event because they were worried about potential anti-Semitic attacks. But
yeah.
we're veering into politics on the Royal Show, but that really worried me a little bit, and it really brought it into focus because we were in Auschwitz seeing what had gone on. That really hit home.
Yeah, and it does tie into what the King said as well at the end of his speech, because there has been a rise in anti-Semitism, and I think it's very interesting that the King made a point during his speech that although the Auschwitz and Holocaust survivors are probably going to not be with us in the next decade, it's up to the future generations to continue telling their story to ensure nothing like Auschwitz or the death camps ever happens again. And I think it was telling, perhaps, that was the case with the embargo.
It was a very important day, and I'm glad all the royals came out and represented. That was very good. One of the royals who were there we haven't touched on was Prince William. We touched briefly on the fact that Prince William was always going to attend. I've got the view here that Prince William seems to be stepping up at the moment, because we know that he met British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, I think later that night.
Yeah, it was after the event.
Because the heir to the throne now has to, as part of his role, to officially meet the Prime Minister, I think once or twice a year. He did meet Sunak last year, but I'm not entirely sure if it was as official as this. What do we make of this, Cameron?
Well, this was the first time he'd met Starmer in his capacity as Prince of Wales and Starmer as Prime Minister. The meeting took place at Kensington Palace. And I understand that it is purely just protocol that once a year the Prime Minister would be meeting Prince William. But I think it was telling that it was so soon after the PM had a meeting, well, a phone call with the new President Trump of the United States. And we know that royal sources and his aides want to push William into this global statesman figure. And we know that the Labour government isn't really going to get on much with President Trump and the Republican Party in the US. So is the royal family going to be the British government's trump cards, pardon the pun, to get the, the trade tariffs off the table and create a better special relationship than we currently have with the US?
Yeah, I mean, William does have to step up, as the heir to the throne. Charles had 60 years. If my maths is right, someone will tell me if I'm wrong. But he had decades to learn the ropes, so to speak. So these are all new things for Prince William. He's in his early 40s, but he has to go through all these steps and hoops, as the Prince of Wales, right?
And also, again, to step back into politics, because it is very relevant to the royal conversation at the moment. We are at a time of great global change. There are massive shifts in dynamics, and we do know that Trump, on the record, has talked about how fond he is of Prince William, and he does, the president, I should say, does respond well with people that he has that relationship with, where he admires them and he respects them, as he did the late Queen, as he's already said he does with Charles. And so it makes sense that William will be pushed forward as well, along with the King, to just maintain those lines of communication that are quite friendly. It's going to be very, very useful for the UK government, because their policies and the personality of the PM is very different to the new US administration.
Keeping it domestic in the UK, do you think Keir Starmer and Prince William have a lot in common? Do you think they'll get on? They're both football fans. Keir Starmer very controversially goes into the box at Arsenal games sometimes. William goes to watch Aston Villa. Do you think they've got much common ground?
Well, I'd love to see them at an Arsenal v Aston Villa game to see how they get on. I think if they do have common ground, it's going to be things like the environment or conservation, something that we know Starmer's talked about in the past. Of course, Prince William has to remain politically neutral, so he's not going to have an opinion on that. But I think, whoever is in government, the Prince will know that as a member of the royal family, as the future king, he clearly does have to find common ground with every politician that's put in front of him to meet.
And it's beneficial for the Prime Minister to be friends with the Prince of Wales and the King, isn't it? It's beneficial to them to actually have friends in the royal family.
As we're saying, in this current environment especially, if they can work together and have a really good relationship and as I say, work together on sort of global affairs, it's only going to be beneficial for everyone, but especially the PM.
I'd love to know what they talked about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Starmer can only dream of the approval ratings that Prince William has at the moment. I mean, latest YouGov polling polls him at like 80% or something, the most popular member of the royal family. And I think Starmer could perhaps dream of that.
Yeah, well, maybe people want to meet William and hope some of that kind of stardust rubs off on them.
Maybe.
There's a good chance.
Maybe.
One person who I was so glad to hear from the last couple of days was Princess Anne.
Yes.
So we were very worried about her last year. She was rushed to hospital. I mean, she's tough as old boots. We know that Princess Anne it really is indestructible. But she was in South Africa and she was interviewed, and I like to hear from her, but I'll just go through some of the things she said. She said that she was very close to not being after being injured by a horse. But she also says that when she was asked about plans to retire, she said it's not an option. Is there a time for looking at the members of the royal family where you look at their age or you look at their kind of the health issues that they have?
Yeah.
Should members of the royal family have a retirement age like the rest of us?
Well, traditionally they haven't. I mean, obviously the late Queen went on until her last moments. Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, I think he was 96 or something when he retired in 2017, so he was incredibly old. And Princess Anne, I think, really takes after her father and is, as we know, a very hard-working member of the royal family. She's consistently the top in terms of number of engagements each year. I think she genuinely enjoys her work. And if you remember back to the interview she gave with Canadian television just before the coronation, she said, the idea of a slimmed-down monarchy seems like a better idea when there was a few more people around, and it doesn't really work anymore. And I think will be aware that if she suddenly retired, there'd be even fewer working members of the royal family who can pick up the slack.
And this conversation of retirement as well reminded me of, I think it was about 2021 when the late Queen got COVID and that press release came out. And this is probably, I'm sure from everything we know about the Queen, this was her own directive, but I remember it said she has symptoms, but she'll be maintaining light duties. And I thought, my goodness, can she have a break? She's in her 90s, please. She's got COVID, let her rest. But I think that this is this idea that's been instilled in them from everything we know about the royals and Anne especially and the late Queen. It's that they work and they're taught about the role and the duty from a very young age. And I wonder, though, with the William and especially with everything that's happened with Catherine over the last 12 months, I wonder if when the new generation sort of takes the throne, whether that mentality might change a little, and they might get the concept of there is a point at which you can step back. It also will probably have everything to do with how many royals are on the roster. Yeah. That does appear to be a crucial detail.
Well, do we place too much demands on the royal family? Because I just remember thinking, you're talking about the late Queen there, and I remember reporting at the time and thinking, you're right, just relax.
Take a week off.
Enjoy your retirement. We don't need you racing around when you're unwell. And I thought that with the King as well. I mean, he did rush back quite quickly, but that's the King. He's a hard-working fella. But even when he was unwell and couldn't work, he was still staying up late, reading his red boxes. And we're told that he actually enjoyed the fact that he had so much time to carry on with his correspondence and write his many letters. Yeah. But we're asking so much of the royal family at the moment.
Well, I think it's a generational thing, and even Queen Camilla was saying that she's struggling to get the King to slow down. Yeah. And with the generational shifts, I think for William and Catherine, they tend to be going in a different direction. They seem to be doing things their way. It's less public engagements, but perhaps a bit more work behind the scenes that could have a bit more of an impact on communities, particularly in the UK. Of course, it's early days, so we need to wait and see if that comes to fruition. But the late Queen always said that you have to be, as in the royal family needs to be seen to be believed. And I think there probably is a balance that's going to have to be struck here as we move into the next generations, making sure that they are, seen out in public.
Yeah, I mean, the king is definitely living up to that mantra. The fact that he came straight back out after, when he felt healthy enough, he was straight, and he wants to be seen to be believed.
Yeah.
Just to end on that interview from South Africa with Princess Anne, she also said, asked about, her health, and she said, "You are sharply reminded that every day is a bonus." I mean, I like that from Anne. Amen. I think she's opened up quite well on that.
There's been a lot of that from the royals over the last year. I think they've all sort of reached that point, and it's a good mentality to have at the end of it.
Let's hear more from Anne. Right, guys. We are all impeccably dressed today.
Yeah.
Me and Cameron both in ties.
Yes.
I do like a tie on the show, and Bronte obviously looking wonderful in green. Can we talk about royal fashion? So I've been looking at quite a few pictures over the last couple of weeks or the last couple of days, attending some of the jobs, and I've spotted the King last Sunday in a 40-year-old jacket, which I thought looked pretty awesome.
Yeah.
He was wearing a very snazzy tie, I thought, at Auschwitz. Prince William's been wearing a shacket recently, which this is a real thing. It's half jacket, half shirt.
I know.
Okay, and he seems to have modern clothing with bright white trainers. And he was wearing a flat cap earlier this year.
I love his flat caps.
I think the men, because the women, we always talk about the women, we always talk about what Princess of Wales is wearing or what the Duchess of Sussex is wearing, but the men, Cameron, stick up for the men. The men have really stepped it up.
Yeah, they really have. They've upped their fashion game, I think, because they have to. I think there is more of an interest generally in men's fashion, particularly with social media, and I think they're catching on to the fact that that's the case, but also I'm noticing they're getting their individual styles as well. As you say, Prince William with his flat cap and what was it called?
Shacket.
Shacket.
As in shirt and jacket.
Shirt and jacket and his white trainers. Looks like a finance bro or something, doesn't he? And also his beard as well.
I was going to say, I think that's part of it. That has attracted so much attention, but I also do think we've seen over the last couple of years, William having a bit of a style makeover. I think he looks a lot younger than he did a few years ago because he seems to be a little bit more casual, but also more relaxed. I think fashion is a reflection of confidence, and I think when people are feeling a little bit more relaxed and comfortable in their roles, that can come out, and maybe that's why Charles feels good about his snazzy ties, for example, and William with his shacket.
I think Charles is a style icon. I really genuinely do. I'm going on record to say that I want to dress like him when I am in my 70s.
I think they all look good.
That jacket was awesome, and I'm told about the blue ties that he often wears blue and white ties because he likes the colour.
Fair
and
enough.
we all have a certain colour tie that we quite like.
Yeah, exactly. And he wears a kilt as well when he's in Scotland.
Of course, I forgot the
things
kilt.
like that. Yeah,
yes.
Burns Night in particular.
It was the kilt on Burns Night.
Yes.
And I also love that the King is so famously committed to re-wearing clothes that he's had for a long time, but that's actually very in fashion. So mind the pun. But he's also very in fashion now, particularly with Gen Z. And so that's something that's actually very relatable. And William does it as well through the Earthshot Prize. He talks about wearing sustainable fashion. And so the King's been doing this for decades. So he's really quite a trendsetter. But it's something that will endear them with people because it is actually something that people are really focusing on now as well.
We may have touched on this earlier, but do you think this is a deliberate rebrand to maybe reach out to younger people?
I think it maybe being a bit more relatable. I mean, what I noticed a difference in was around the coronation, where obviously on Coronation Day it was all very traditional, very regal. Even Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis were wearing clothes which other children perhaps wouldn't wear because they're not members of the royal family. But when they did the engagement at the Scout Hut, when they were rebuilding the Scout Hut, they were just wearing casual jeans and a T-shirt like every other child. So I think they are becoming a bit more relaxed with fashion to be more relatable to people in this country.
Striking that balance we were talking about, where it's they need to maintain that history and the traditions, but they're also showing that they're people that understand the majority and that they can relate to the issues that we all care about.
Absolutely.
They're some of the most photographed people in the world, so it's kind of important. And I'm glad we brought it up. And I'm sticking up for Charles and William. I think we pay more attention to what the men are wearing and less attention, or, about the same, but, let's concentrate on them.
Start asking for brands from William and the King for what they're wearing.
Exactly.
Did you ever think you'd say shacket on this show?
Well, it's a difficult word to say without getting it wrong, and I think I got away with it.
You did.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Right. Now, are you ready? So, when I was in Poland, I made a trip to the Polonia Wax Museum. Now, do you know what this is? This is a wax museum in Krakow that is quite famous online, particularly on TikTok, with people who are kind of find some of the waxworks rather insulting to our British royals. So I went in there with a camera, I spoke to the manager and the owner, I had a wonderful time. So I just want to show you this here.
Oh, God.
Is the Prince and Princess of Wales in their waxwork glory in the Polonia Waxwork Museum. I spoke to the owner and he said that they got these from China, okay? They paid $10,000 for them 8 years ago. He assures me that that's what William and Catherine looked like 8 years ago when they got them in. I mean, we've all been in that situation, haven't we, where you've ordered something online, okay?
Yes.
This is what I ordered.
Okay.
And this is what I got.
Expectation versus reality.
We can have a close-up, actually. Should we have a look at William?
It's quite frightening, isn't it? Oh, gosh, no. Melt it down again.
No.
But don't have nightmares, guys, but this has been compared to Hugh Grant after 20 Jaeger bombs.
Oh, poor William.
It's scary because it has just enough of him in there, but then something else, and that's what's making it a little bit otherworldly, but not in a nice way.
Yeah, I think you can tell it's trying to be William, but it certainly fails, I think, on the lookalike.
Goodness.
Let's go one worse. Let's have a look at the Princess of Wales.
Oh, gosh.
Maybe the eyes right, maybe, but the hair's all wrong. I don't think she'd wear that.
Well, they get 500 visitors a day, mainly English-speaking people who want to pose with William and Catherine and laugh. Now, they are actually going to replace these.
Are they?
Yeah. So they're going to keep these two abominations, as I like to call them, but they're going to replace them with a new William and Catherine, a more up-to-date William and Catherine. They would like William and Catherine to pose for a 3D body scan. I said to him, I don't think that's going to happen. However, these aren't the only royals that they have at the Polonia Wax Museum. We also have the Queen and Prince Philip.
Oh, that's appalling.
Okay, the late Queen, thankfully, looked nothing like the person I'm going to compare this to, but it looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Like, horrifying.
Well, we thought Prince Philip looked like Bill Nighy.
Yeah, see, that's not as... Yeah. It actually looks nothing like Prince Philip. I think that's... If that was not standing next to the Gollum Queen, that would be unrecognisable.
But also the clothing is just... You can tell it's poor quality. You can just look at it. It's very shiny. You know, it's got that polyester vibe to it rather than nice woolen jacket for Prince Philip there.
The poor lovely
a Casio watch as well, by the way.
Casio, oh great.
The poor lovely late Queen. I shudder to think if she could have seen that of herself, because that is an abomination.
I find it funny.
It was an awesome pilgrimage to go there, but they're not the only waxworks they have in this museum, okay? When I went in there and I saw William and Catherine staring back at me at the entrance, it was almost like Poland had declared war on the United Kingdom, okay? They hadn't, but I was very much like, I felt, you know, this was kind of almost an insult. But the more you walk around the museum, you realise it's not just us they're picking on. So I'm going to show you the next one, and I want you to see if you can guess who this is meant to be.
Is that meant to be Angela Merkel?
Angela Merkel? Bronte?
Truly, it looks like no one I've ever seen in my life. So I have no idea.
I thought it was like Michael Myers from the Halloween movies, but this is apparently Hillary Clinton.
No.
No.
No, it's not.
No.
Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
Why is the hair so dark?
Yeah.
He said that they had it made in China from 2008. 2016. And she said that's what she looked like then.
I don't think it was.
Yeah.
The nicest possible way.
One more that I took a picture of.
Well, it doesn't. To be fair, it doesn't look anything like him, but that has to be Donald Trump.
That's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Why is he
that would have
looking
been
up?
my guess as well.
And they've written to Donald Trump and they've asked for him to send one of his trademark red ties. They've written 3 letters to him and he hasn't replied because they thought if he had the red tie on, an authentic Donald Trump red tie, it would make him look more like the US president.
I don't think that's the problem.
No, I don't think it is. The hair's all wrong.
And to confirm, they aren't doing this as a joke. Like, it's not...
Well, he said it's quite fun. He says the William and Catherine waxworks are the most popular, of course.
Because they've gone viral, right?
It's
Yeah.
gone because it's gone viral, but so he doesn't want to get rid of them. As I said, when they arrived, he thought they were okay, but he's now, the Wax Museum understand the joke.
Now that they've seen a photo of Kate and William, they've realised, actually...
I mean, I'd love to know the reaction of those hardcore royal Twitter fans, particularly William and Catherine,
When they saw.
when they saw it for the first time.
Well, it's so bad that it's funny.
Yeah.
I think is the general feeling towards them. Well, that's enough of them.
That was
enough
a
of them.
gift.
Please-
Thank you.
please
Thank
get
you,
rid of them.
Matt. That was really, that was something.
Don't have nightmares, kids.
Try not to.
Right. Finally, we have our quickfire questions. So you can take a deep breath after seeing that and have a little think about these, please. We mentioned earlier about Sussexes living back in the UK. Where should the Sussexes live if they move back to the UK?
I reckon they'd go to the Cotswolds. Like Ellen DeGeneres just moved there with Portia de Rossi, and that's kind of was their Montecito set. So I feel like that's the little celebrity enclave with the biggest states, right?
Yeah, I feel like I don't think they will. I think they will stay in the US. But if they did move back to the UK, I think they would have to live within a perimeter of a royal palace. I think it would have to be within the Windsor perimeter or whatever, just to be cost effective for them and the British taxpayer, because they'd want security.
But I was operating under the assumption that they would be on the current terms that they're on, which is very unlikely that they would be invited to live back in there. Although Frogmore Cottage is still empty, isn't it?
It is still empty as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
There you go, an option.
Okay. Which royal would you most like to give a hug, and who would you most like to receive a hug from?
I'd like to hug the Princess of Wales just to say, it's okay, you've got through it. I'm so sorry for the horrible abuse over the last year that you've received from people online.
She probably would. She's giving a lot of hugs these days.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I think she'd like it.
She is. And I'd never really thought about who I would like to receive a hug from, but I suppose Diana, Princess of Wales, would be the obvious choice. I think she'd be quite comforting.
You say that, but yes. But in terms of the obvious choice, I still can't get past the King's big hug with the New Zealand rugby players.
Yeah,
I want to be part of that. That looked really fun. So I'm going to say the King. But I agree with giving the Princess of Wales a hug.
Okay. If you could invite 4 members of the royal family, alive or dead, to a dinner party, who would you invite and why, if possible?
So, I would like to invite Princess Margaret because I think she would be great at a party and would really liven up the atmosphere. Prince William has a lot of banter, so I think he'd be quite good at the dinner table as well. I think somebody like Lady Louise or somebody like that who's the younger generation of the royal family who perhaps could add something to it. And Queen Elizabeth II, I think, as well. I just think it would have been amazing to be in her presence.
She'll keep everyone in under control.
Absolutely.
And have banter with her sister.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say the late Queen because she was such an enigma. I would love to have her there just share a drink and have a chat, find out what she's like. The Tyndalls always seem like they're having the best time. They actually go to these races in Australia every year and they just look so fun. And then the Waleses. I'd love to sit down for dinner with the Prince and Princess of Wales.
That's 5 people, Bronte.
I think Cam had 6, to be fair.
Did you have 6?
Did I? I thought Louise... Margaret.
Queen.
Yeah.
William.
Yeah, Queen, Louise, Margaret, William, 4.
Oh, that's okay.
Can't come on my show and break the rules, guys.
You're right. We'll axe one of them.
No, we'll pull up an extra chair for William. William will sit on the extra chair.
Thank you.
He'll be happy with that. Right, thanks, guys. I really enjoyed that, so I hope you had fun as well. We went through a lot, so I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Matt.
Right, well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a comment. We do read them. See you again next week.